Hey everybody, welcome back to the Caves Cast podcast. I'm Jeremy,
And I'm Ryan.
and this week we are going to be talking all about Ultimate Spider-Man issue number 9.
Yeah.
This so it kind of seemed like last issue was like the start of this Sinister Six arc, right?
Yeah. Pretty
Or
much. Yeah.
maybe two issue. When did they first show up? Was it 7 or 8?
I want to say 8 is when he started like getting them all together.
Right, because we saw like Mole Man. That was last issue, right? Am I
Yeah, I
not?
believe so because they
Yeah,
because they talked
yeah.
about the five boroughs and then they talked about how Mole Man is basically the underground, which is like bigger than all five boroughs combined.
Okay, that yeah, you're right. Because then the other half of that is Tony comes in and talks to Peter and Harry, right? And
Right.
basically tells them like you're not that guy.
Yeah, pretty much. He's like, you weren't on the list. Peter's at the
That's
top
right.
of the list, but you're not. But you're
That's right.
here,
Yeah.
so you
Okay.
might as well be helping him out. So
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Uh what I did find uh what I did find kind of interesting, I think just from like before we really get into it, is like everybody has like a glimpse of who they were supposed to be.
mhm.
You know what I mean? But it it almost seems like it's just a red herring. Like we almost you know what I'm trying to get at? Like we like with Otto or with Harry or like with even with like Ben and Jonah and all these characters, like we kind of get glimpses of who they would have been in the 616 had things gone this way.
Right.
But it's almost like Hickman's just like teasing us. I don't know, like I almost wish we didn't get any more of that and it was just strictly 6160 characterizations. Like, because and I can appreciate him wanting to make the callbacks, but I think at this point now we're at this it needs to stand on its own because Marvel is so bent on not allowing 616 Peter to be any version of this.
Right. But I know
Um
exactly why you're talking about that. Is it this moment right here with like Otto? Like
yeah,
that?
like that, like that's
Yeah.
like that and then you have like just the way that Jonah acts, like he's still like that like straight edge like mouthy guy.
Yeah.
But like then there are other moments where we see him act so completely different that I almost just want that concentrated version of him, not any like anything that relates to what would be 616.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, that's just like a not that it's a gripe. It's just something I feel like these characters, I think at this point, you could really just steer away from anything 616 related and it would still be true to who they are. And it, at least for this version of them, and it
Yeah.
would still be really, really good characterization. And maybe as the series progresses and we pull further away from those
Yeah.
little
I'm sure
connecting
he's not going to be
pieces.
doing that like every issue. You know what I mean?
No, no. And but at first because I read this a couple times and I thought I was like, I'm like, maybe I'm just like making shit up in my head. Like, but then when I read it the second time, I was like, they really kind of are just like darker reflections of who they're supposed to be.
Right.
And maybe that's just me, like, wanting it to be so different, but at the same time, I know that that's really what this is. They're just dark reflections of who they're meant to be,
Yeah.
kind of like the absolute stuff.
Right.
And I saw we'll talk about that next week because I
Yeah.
really do want to talk about that stuff next week.
I
But
know. I
just
know.
say,
I can't wait to read it.
oh, I know,
I can't
I
wait to talk about it already.
yeah. Um, so like the first part of this is just what is it? Jonah and Ben are in just in a bar and they're just having a drink and they're waiting for Mary Jane and they're just talking about how they feel like the only reason their paper is successful is because of Spider-Man, not because of anything that any by their own merits.
Right.
So, and that's something that, which, and this is kind of why I felt this way with Jonah is because like while in 616, he's just like, he's so obsessed with making sure, or for the longest time, he was so obsessed with making sure that or that Spider-Man was the menace of New York, like he was trying to catch him in the act of doing something.
Right.
But now he doesn't realize it, but he has such a close familial connection to Spider-Man that it's almost consumed his life in a different way.
Right.
Like he wanted to start the paper in an attempt to spread the truth and not just tell stories about Spider-Man.
Right. But they have to do it for clout, pretty much. So,
Right. And that's the thing that Mary Jane says is like, look, like you're the biggest paper in the city right now because of this. You're the
right.
fastest growing, you have the biggest fan, like you have the biggest reader base. And you need to focus on that because once you have reached the peak, then you can start telling the truth and you're going to have such a wide audience, they're going to have no choice but to listen.
Right.
So, which is almost like a really, really like political power move
Yeah.
because you have Fisk who is now owns the Bugle, and he's for all intents and purposes he's gunning for the top too. So what happens when and it's bound they're bound to come into conflict with each other. So
Right.
who's going to die is kind of where I
Yeah.
think this is headed. And is it going to be Jonah? You think?
Right. Because it's all, yeah. It's either going to be Jonah or Ben. It has to be just because it's more or less like, Kingpin is more or less the maker's propaganda at this point.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if basically they are trying to fight disinformation and misinformation, and yeah,
yeah.
Kingpin's not going to like that. So, yeah, it's going to be bad.
And I I don't remember if it happened or not, but does Kingpin have a seat in that cabal yet, or is he still trying to work his way up there?
I believe he's trying to work his way up there.
Okay.
I believe
And that's what I thought it was. I don't remember him actually getting a seat at the table yet, you know?
no, no. He's
So, I
just
mean,
like designated for like New York and that's it.
right. Right.
But I do
Um,
love the way that Mary Jane is written here. Like the way Mary
yeah.
Jane's written and talking to Jonah, and it's awesome. It's
Right,
really
because like it's such a departure from who she is in main continuity right now, you know?
right.
Like to see her like I feel like every time that she's on the page, she has like this gravitas where
Yep.
it's like you just focus on her because I think Mary Jane's like one of the biggest wild cards in this book is because we have such a preconceived notion of who she should be, but this version is so much like her but also so different.
Well, I think that's the same way for Gwen too. Gwen should
Yeah.
be. We haven't seen
Yeah,
Gwen alive
Gwen.
this long, so she's
I
completely
think
different.
Gwen's gonna go bad, dude.
I think so. She's a little too extreme, telling Harry what he should be doing with like property destruction and stuff like that.
Yeah, man. Well, like, and even like, and later on when they talk about like, what do you want to do for Christmas? You know,
Yeah.
Harry even says like, when Gwen decides something, we just go with it. Like, we don't
Right.
have a choice,
Right.
which is like,
Yeah.
it's gonna happen, brother.
Exactly.
But then they jump scenes over to Oscorp where Otto is still, working on their tech, trying to figure out the Pico suit, but for whatever reason, he just cannot figure it out. Um, and I like this bit between Peter and the suit, the AI, where he's saying like, he's like, all right, so what do we think? Like
Yeah.
because like I have a new suit for you, yada yada yada. You know, I overlaid a new radio frequency on Harry's suit, so Stark can't interrupt his thing again. Um, and sometimes I feel like this AI is starting to evolve past just like Peter's brainwaves and his identity and who it was modeled after.
Right.
That's probably by design. Be one because the Picotech is so far advanced from anything else in the world, at least in the Ultimate Universe. And it really seems like that they're driving this like it's going to become independent of Peter at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and Otto is just confused because he's like, "What is he doing?" And he's like, and then Pierre's like, he just talks to himself a lot. That's just what he does.
Yeah.
And then I think what's interesting is even the symbiote called it ahead of time. He's like, "I'll bet you limitless credit card whose balance gets paid off every month that the good doctor tries to keep me."
Right.
And like literally this right after Peter asked, he's like, "Oh, I was gonna hang on to it and put it in a cage and keep working on it and keep trying to figure it out." And then it like is like it's like in a panic of like, don't leave me with him. Like, don't, please don't.
Right. Yeah.
He's like, leave me at home. Worst case scenario, I can protect your home when you're not there.
Right.
Um, and it's his reaction after one after seeing the, and it's so I really do like, I really do think it's a cool suit. Like it is cool.
Yeah.
But also, it's one of those things where it's like it's too early. You
And
know what I mean?
it's too flashy, too much.
Yeah, and I think Hickman is doing that on purpose, like showing off all of these like gadgets and things that could be's and what ifs,
Right.
only for Peter to say, "Nah, I don't need that. I don't want it."
Right.
So, and then there's not really any reason why he should take the Iron Spider suit because he's not in a position like he was during Civil War.
Right.
So for him, he's like, "Man, I'm okay. Like I'm good. No thanks." And Otto is just like stunned. Like he just can't believe that he would like disregard his like his work, all the time he spent on like making the suit for him. And and he has to know that Peter is probably on his case about it. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
he knows that Peter is aware of what, because I feel like from the get like we know who Otto is, but we don't.
Right.
So at every step of the way, like even the reader and Peter were all like, "Hmm,
Yeah.
I don't know,
I
man.
don't
Like
trust it,
it's
bro.
kind of suspicious."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Superior Spider-Man maybe happening
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Too
yeah,
much.
exactly. And then he's like, "Oh yeah, maybe I over designed it. You know, there's a simpler solution." And then he just gives him the spandex.
Yeah. Which is great. Which is
Yeah,
great.
yeah, really, really just classic. Um, and I like Harry just ribbing him over it like the whole time. He's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's a great suit, man. It looks so good." He's like,
Well,
"Shut up, bro."
what's crazy is we get this scene also of Jonah and Ben where they start looking into the Stain Stark
Mm,
connection too. So that's probably why in the next issue's cover we see Harry taking Jonah
right.
because
Um, and
right
Robbie still works for the Bugle, right?
he does
But he's like undercover for Ben and Jonah, right?
unless he's double crossing. But yeah, that's what he's
That's what he's telling them, right? Like,
yeah
oh, whatever info need, like whatever info I can pass on to you, I will.
right.
Um,
We don't know if his loyalty is still to Kingpin or
right, because I feel like part of what makes this book work so well is that at any given point, the characters that we think we know can turn into somebody we don't.
right. It's
So
like I'm constantly waiting for something bad to happen.
yeah,
Every
like I mean, like the last several issues, I feel like we've had like an oh no moment.
yeah,
But also like it's not oh no to the point where like the other shoe is dropped and it's like oh shit. Like it's just been like a, oh no, like like we can see the dominoes falling before they've already fallen, you know?
exactly. Like Hickman's like, look at this. This is about to drop. This will drop soon. You'll see.
Yeah, or like he's dangling one shoe over here, you know? He's like,
Yeah,
"Hey," and then this one's like boof, and you don't
right.
expect
He's good at
it.
that.
Yeah. So like and then it's that fight and then we lead into the fight with Black Cat,
Yes,
the Velvet Blade as he calls himself.
right.
Um, so this obviously sets up to Felicia becoming the Black Cat right after their fight
Yeah,
because
yeah,
he's injured by the end of this and he's hospitalized.
right. It looks like his like legs all messed up. He could be
Yeah.
paralyzed. He. I wouldn't be
It was
surprised also if Black Cat feels a certain way to Harry because he blasted her father off
yeah,
roof.
right. I what and you brought this up like right after we had after like last week after we had read it was like this is the first time he's been able to feel his spider sense, right?
Yeah, because it's almost like he's out of the Pico suit, so he's way more vulnerable.
Right. So like now like those natural instincts and abilities that he would have had if he was just on his own without that suit are starting to come into play. And Harry just writes it off as like, man, we're always in danger, so there's no like of course you would feel like we're in danger.
Right,
But like it's, and then he says, "No, it's look out." And then Harry gets zapped by Black Cat.
right.
Um I really like that was how this fight started was because it really gives Peter a chance to just like it gives us a chance to see Peter on his own in a fight because every fight he's been in, bar the Shocker fight in like issue what 1 and 2,
Yeah,
it's just I mean, and he's like a low level criminal in this. He just acquired the tech through somebody else.
Right.
He's not like Black Cat, who is like a gang leader of an entire borough.
Right.
Like he's facing off against somebody that's well above his, like he's punching up at this point.
Yeah.
And to see him have to take that on like a first actual, like he's in danger and he doesn't have anybody there to back him up. It's a good fight. I really really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I agree.
And then meanwhile, you've got Harry just screaming out for his dad, like, help, reboot, reboot, reboot.
Yeah, because he's basically just paralyzed and his suit just stuck. Like, what do I
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. And I think it was good because it shows like the difference between the two of them, you know? Like here you've got Peter who gave up like that AI, left it at home, but then you've got who and he's like he's not relying on it anymore. He's not reliant on this voice in his head that's telling him how to act, how to react, and what to say or do. Whereas like Harry is almost like always looking for that approval, you
Yeah,
know?
it's
Like,
depending.
Dad, what do I do? Like, Dad, what should I do? How do I handle this?
Yeah,
And I think that's going to be a really, really quick descent into him becoming a villain.
right.
Is he's gonna have Norman's, voice in his head saying, "Hey, man, like, make the call."
Well, we get a glimpse of that in here because
Yeah,
when Harry does finally come back on, you
yeah,
know,
yeah. Armor's back online. Don't think, son, just act.
right. Because basically like Peter's in trouble, don't think, just act. So it's like boom, and then that's when he gives out this huge beam of
Yeah, and he blasts him off the edge.
right.
Um, and even like immediately after he blasts him, Peter's like, "What'd
Yeah,
you just do, man?"
yeah. He's like, what the hell was that? What the hell was
Yeah,
that, Harry? Like, you
and
know,
see, and this is what I mean with like glimpses of who they should be. Like it's just that last bit of dialogue, he's all like, "You need to know something, Peter. If I'm put to the choice and one of them is about to kill you, I will never hesitate."
right,
Like because I Harry grew up effectively the same way here as he did in 616. Rich, almost all powerful in the sense that his dad was like this, upper level person, untouchable, out of massive amounts of wealth, intelligent, all these things. And Peter is pretty much the same as he was there, bar the the bigger sweeping differences. Like at their core, they're still the same.
right,
It's it's almost like what happens if you put them under different kinds of pressure? Who like will they remain the same or will they turn into something else?
right,
So to see Harry like already like and it hasn't even been a year since he met Peter because they didn't know each other prior to this.
right,
So they didn't go to school together, they didn't grow up together, they didn't have any of that bond. But the only bond that they do have is they lost somebody in the attack. They both feel like they've been chosen for a higher purpose, and I think that's the one thing I think Harry's hanging on to is because this is the only person who can understand him in some aspect.
right,
So what happens when the one person that you trust, care about, and is your best friend turns away from you? And you know what I mean? When he doesn't morally agree with the decisions that you're making, like what do you do?
right. And what happens when Harry's in a position where Peter hesitates? And how does Harry react to Peter hesitating?
Exactly. He's like, yeah, and that's I didn't think about that either. Like what happens if the roles are reversed and Peter doesn't make that hard call and he just says, "Hey," like, and he whether or not Harry, I don't think Harry will die anytime soon. But then again, you never know.
Right.
It could be that Harry dies at some point and we see a rise of another goblin.
I mean, anything could happen. It could even be to a point where Gwen dies and that
Dude, I
like
figured it
starts like
out,
his
dude.
downfall. Like his downfall is like Gwen dies and he, you never know.
The
Like
Gwen Goblin.
oh God. No. Hickman, no. But I
The
do love
Gwen
this part at the
Goblin.
end where I do love this part at the end though, where Peter kind of like he's pissed still and he's like looking at him. He's like, "Well, just so you know, you're still invited to Christmas."
Yeah, yeah, because that's a whole bit like when they're first talking on the rooftop, like before
Yeah,
the fight happens, like, "Hey man, like, sorry, I've got plans."
but you see Peter kind of like being pissed at me, like, you know what? Just let this go. Just invite
Yeah, and
him.
and I right. And I feel like Peter understands his point of view, even if he doesn't agree with it.
Right.
But I think part of the intrigue there is we don't know how this Peter would react given that same situation.
Right.
Like, and what happens if he does make the hard call, kills somebody, and then decides I can never make that choice again.
Right.
And then the fallout of the next time he's presented with that opportunity, he has to make that choice of I can't cross that line again. And what are the consequences of not crossing that line?
Right. 100%.
I, I I don't know. For me, it's not so much about like the characters itself that are in this book. It's more so just about how the world is going to press them into different situations than what
Right.
we would normally see them in. And that's the most interesting thing I think about the Ultimate Universe right now is we're getting characters that are similar in a way to their main counterparts, but they're faced with vastly different scenarios,
Right.
challenges, enemies, like and even their like friendly relationships are very different.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's what makes this book stand apart from like literally everything else Marvel's putting out.
Right. But you
It's
also
just
got to
like,
understand, like Peter has so much to lose. He has
right,
kids. Like
right,
Harry and Gwen don't have kids. They're
right. Just these big business moguls, like they just,
so I imagine the hard choices are going to have to do with that too. Where Peter's like, "Bro, I got a family I got to think of. Like, dude, I got
yeah, right. Because like what happens if they make a mistake and his identity is revealed?
right."
And that's something that Peter's like I feel like that's something that's we always keep hearing. Well, his family could be in danger. Well, his friends are in danger. His loved ones are in
Well, for
danger. But
sure, if Kingpin finds out, yeah, they're going to be in
yeah,
danger.
and I
Like,
and I think that was even something they said early on when they first took that fight to Kingpin in his penthouse was like, hey man, like we have to be careful. Like if they find out who I am, I'm done.
but to be honest with you, all Kingpin will really need to do is just go into the Maker's files and be like, "Who is Spider-Man?"
Right. Who was Spider-Man, right, in the original universe.
Exactly. And, it wouldn't surprise me if Kingpin finds out that way, or somebody from the Sinister Six does,
Yeah.
and then if he
I,
goes to the Cabal saying, like, hey, this guy right here isn't supposed to be around. He's around now, and he's messing up with my operations, was messing up with all
yeah.
your guys' operations. So,
Um the next several issues seem to indicate it'll be like fights with each member, right, of the
yeah,
Sinister Six.
yeah.
Do you think they come out of this unscathed?
No, no, not at all. I think I think each member of the Sinister Six is going to bring out something that Peter probably is going to be second guessing in Harry.
Then that would have been my next question to you was like because this was a test, I feel like, for the two of them to see like how they would react when they were like when push came to shove and it was like do or die, you
Right,
know? So, and I'm sure they're kind of keep coming up against that, but also in different ways. And they may not even be so as like direct as Black Cat was. Like you might see Mysterio more or less just play with them and like try and get information out of them rather than like a direct approach where they're just fighting on a rooftop.
right. Well, keep in mind, Mysterio is the only person we know nothing about
Right.
in this whole
Right.
thing. Everybody else, we know their identities, we know what they're about.
Hmm.
Mysterio, even the Sinister Six, doesn't know what's up with him.
Right.
So,
So, and I honestly think like this is going to be like a war of attrition for the two of them because we have 9, 10, 11 and 12 I'm sure are bound to be more encounters, but 13 is Craven. If the cover is any indicator on what's going to happen in the issue, Craven is going to be hunting them.
yeah,
So it's almost like I mean it probably is part of a larger plan by Kingpin to wear them down over the course of several days, weeks, or months, what
yeah,
have you.
for
So
sure.
it's just going to be like
And
when
technically, he's already fought Kingpin. They already fought
yeah,
Kingpin, so that's one of the Sinister two now. The Sinister Six down.
yeah.
So
So they've got, I mean, they got the rest of them.
And I imagine by the end of this, they're going to be underground with Mole Man, trying to deal with that.
Yeah,
Whatever
yeah.
Mole Man's
No,
going
I would
to
imagine. I, I think the other thing that's interesting with the Sinister Six is the power dynamic.
Yeah,
Is they're all like kings of New York. You know what I
right.
mean? But what happens when one of these kings wants to overstep a bound like those boundaries or like
Exactly.
those like territorial lines?
Exactly.
So it's almost like this is like they're like destined to fall apart because of how much influence they each have in the city. So like I would imagine that they're going to come in they could come into conflict with each other as well.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know, man. Like I just feel like every issue becomes a guessing game after we finish it because it's just like what really what could happen next?
And then every issue we get gives me more questions of a guessing game because the last
Yeah.
issue isn't answered with the guessing that I'm making. So it's like every issue I have more guesses. More.
Yeah, and like it's so funny because like I feel like we shit on a lot of books that do this to us, but like this is one of those books where I just feel like that's what makes it so good.
Well, the ride is fun. The ride isn't
Yeah.
confusing in the process. It's
Right.
not.
Yeah, right. Every issue makes sense. The dialogue is well written. The characterizations are really good. And like it's not like you said, it's not confusing to follow along with. It's not like there's these huge number of overwhelming concepts and sci-fi things and
Yeah.
prose dialogue that's gonna like that you have to wrap your head around or philosophical stuff. It's just really easy, good storytelling with a lot of mystery behind it.
Yeah. And it can get slice of life, you know? Like
Mhm.
that's something I like about this series too. It's like it could ramp up the intensity and it could, go slice of life.
Yeah.
So
Because I mean, we've got issue 12 coming out, in December, and it seems like it's very Christmas oriented.
right, it looks so good. That cover's awesome. Like,
Yeah,
dude. So I'm really excited for that. I love this series. I adore this series. It's my favorite Marvel series right now. I can't gush enough about it. Just because, man, it's about time we got a good Spidey book.
seriously. I
It
I'm trying to look up solicitations right now for the next several issues. So like I'm just gonna like issue 10 says J. Jonah Jameson, Ben Parker, and the Green Goblin collide. Fan favorite duo Ben Parker and J. Jonah Jameson take center stage in this investigative mystery issue. But in this world of shadows and secrets, every unturned rock leads to danger, and they'll soon have to decide which is the greater challenge, uncovering secrets or keeping them. So
exactly.
very clearly they're going to put themselves in the line of fire with Harry because they're going to be discovering secrets about Stain Stark and what it really means now that Oscorp has acquired
And
them.
now Peter's gonna be like, "What the hell? That's my uncle, my two
Right.
uncles, basically.
Right. And
Leave
then
them
11
all alone."
is yeah. 11 is who is the ultimate Black Cat? Tensions rise between Spider-Man and Green Goblin in the wake of recent events. And a new villain steps up to the plate. What is their connection to Black Cat on Kingpin Sinister Six? We know it's his daughter,
Right.
which will be interesting to see how he acts around Felicia Hardy in this, knowing he's a married man and he's got a family.
Yes.
I imagine the temptation for him isn't really going to be much of a thing, but it
I
might
imagine
more.
it's just probably gonna be more for her, like I want him type of thing because
Yeah, like she's gonna go into that fight thinking that he's like this awful human being and that he's the reason her dad is hurt, but then is gonna realize that that's not the case really fast.
right. And if anything, I'm sure just a minute around Harry, she's gonna be able to deduce like, oh, it's probably him.
Yeah,
You know?
he's the worse off. He's the worst of the two, right?
Right.
And then issue 12 is a very merry spider Christmas. Season's greetings from the Parker family, but why is Peter acting so strangely around the most wonderful time of the year?
Pico suit?
Or his spider sense is developing like as fully developed at this point, and maybe he's able to pick up on things like he hasn't been able to so far.
Right. Like overwhelming him in a way.
Yeah, and then it says and what's got Gwen so concerned? Don't miss the thrilling conclusion to the second arc in the first year of Ultimate Spider-Man.
Ooh.
Right, and it could just turn out to be more than just he has because like I feel like okay as much shit as people give No Way Home, the scene where Pete is able to like preemptively like he his spider sense goes off when the Goblin takes over Norman in that, in that scene when
Yeah.
they're in their house and he's like in the other room and he like it goes off and he has this like nervous feeling and he can feel it even before it hits.
Yeah.
I feel like that might be something they're playing into, and maybe it's Gwen. Maybe Gwen, maybe I obviously don't have an answer for that because it's all speculative, but I don't know. It would be interesting to see them put at odds, by the end of this first arc or the second arc.
Yeah.
But then issue 13 says Craven's most dangerous game. The Sinister Six are all hunting Spider-Man and the Green Goblin for their ringleader Kingpin, and this time Craven has the upper hand in this love letter to Craven's last hunt.
Hickman doing a love letter to Craven's Last Hunt by J.M. DeMatteis. I can't ask for anything more. Like,
Yeah, man, and it's him and Chichetto doing it. It's not Messina, so it's gonna be.
beautiful. Is
So.
Chichetto in every issue of this
He
arc?
he isn't doing issue 10. Issue
Ah,
10 is David Messina, who did issue 4,
uh-huh.
which he's a great fill-in
Yeah.
for Chichetto. Because issue 4 was that double date issue, and like for the
Right.
first half of that book, I was like, kind of looks like Chichetto. But
Which is
again,
probably why the next issue probably isn't focusing on a Sinister Six member. It's not going to be
right,
action.
it's
Probably going to
it's
be,
just Jonah and Ben, right?
yeah.
Um, but I think what makes the artist change work so well, again, Matthew Wilson is probably the best colorist Marvel has.
Oh, yeah.
Like bar none, dude. Like the stuff he was doing with Kokolo on Thor, and now that they're working together on Wolverine, and he's been the colorist for I think Chichetto since Daredevil.
Yeah, I was about to say, I know he was doing some Daredevil for a while.
So he makes everything look fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't I can't explain it, man. Like I'm not an art guy. I can't draw color to save my life. But like the way that he does it, it's just like beautiful.
Yeah. I agree.
It's
It
good stuff, man.
it is because this is just a beautiful book to look at, just all around. Just whether it's the art, the inking, the colors, the
Yeah.
writing, the everything. It's a beautiful book.
I I won't spoil it since I already have read it. But I kind of feel like the way that they are setting up the Absolute universe is eerily similar to the way that Marvel set up the Ultimate Universe.
Right. Well,
And
I
I
saw
wonder
an
if
interview where Snyder said that this has been in the works for about 3 years, and then when the Ultimate Universe happened, he was like, they did it before
right.
us. But
But like you'll probably end up reading that the Absolute Power and the DC All In today.
yeah,
But when you read that, you're gonna probably know the exact moment that I'm talking about. But it's not in the Sampier half of that. It's
okay,
in the Wes Craig side of that.
got you. Okay,
So like the way the issue is structured is the first is one half of it because it's flip book,
right.
One half of it is told from the perspective of the Justice League and the fallout of absolute power and them setting up the Watchtower, which we've seen a lot of those preview pages already. Like when I was reading it, we saw probably half of that half of the book already.
Okay,
So, but it's the other half, the one where Wes Craig does the art. Yeah. I won't. I don't want to spoil it, but yeah,
we'll be talking about it
that's
next week.
that's all about Darkseid and his journey to whatever he has to do in
Okay,
this issue. But it is eerily similar to the Maker, like in how they go about certain things.
I'm okay with that.
I am too. Like
Yeah,
I'm not like giving him flack for like copying because like there are really only so many ways within the context of your universe that you can create a new universe. You know what I mean? Like and without just basically saying we just made it. But to
right.
have an in-universe reason as to why these new worlds exist it's good. It works. It works for both brands. But I think the one up that DC has right now on Marvel is they have a set clear game plan that these two universes are going to collide.
Okay, good, good.
So like and Snyder has said it, Williamson has said it, other creators have said it, that this is a multi-year plan to have them separate and then come back together.
Right.
So I imagine that's would be the case with the Ultimate Universe, given how Ultimate Invasion started with
Right.
the Maker and the Illuminati.
Because I mean, for all we know, the Maker could come back in whatever, like 10 more months, and then for all we know, he could just be like, "Screw it, I'm running back to 616 now,"
Yeah,
and then
exactly. So like it's just one of those things where we have to just let it play out and see what happens.
right.
But regardless, the fact that both companies are doing something similar but still so different, it's just good for fans. No matter what fan of what brand that you are, there is now something on either side for you to be interested in.
Awesome. And we got 1 minute left, so I'm gonna just ask you one question: does it feel like Darkseid is the final boss again?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
He is, bro. He is. Dark Side is, bro. That's just
Yeah,
all I got to say. Dark Side is.
can't wait.
All right, guys. That's all we got time for this week. We'll be back next week with Absolute Power and DC All In because it is really just two parts of the same bigger story. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.
Later on, guys.